Before we dive into today's story, I need to take a moment to talk about the collective pain the world is feeling right now as a result of George Floyd's death at the hands of police officers, along with many other Black Americans. George Floyd opened my eyes to the world of injustice and racism that I was blind to for so long, but not anymore. I will no longer sit in silence because of the thought, I am a white woman. What do I know about race? Time is up for that excuse. I am going to read a statement that comes from not only my heart, but the hearts of all other podcasters. We are combining our voices as podcast hosts to take a strong stance against racism and police brutality because no matter the different audiences that we serve, we all believe in one thing: equality and anti-racism. We are podcasters united to condemn the tragic murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and many, many others at the hands of police. This is a continuation of the systematic racism pervasive in our country since its inception, and we are committed to standing against racism in all its forms. We believe that to be silent is to be complicit. We believe that Black lives matter. We believe that Black lives are more important than property. We believe that we have a responsibility to use our platforms to speak out against this injustice whenever and wherever we are witness to it. In creating digital media, we have built audiences that return week after week to hear our voices, and we will use our voices to speak against anti-Blackness and police brutality. And we encourage our audiences to be educated, engaged, and to take action. I want you to know that as a white woman in America, I have been using this time to listen with an open mind, educate myself, and take action. I want you to know that I will be doing my part as a podcast host to incorporate more people of color as guests, as I see that I have been doing myself and you a disservice by not sharing their stories as well. Lastly, in the show notes of this episode, I will be including links to videos, articles, petitions, and funds you can use to help yourself learn and take action to make a change. Black Lives Matter. We are already in the month of June, and June happens to be one of my favorite months. Not only is it my birthday month, but it is also Pride Month. Pride Month celebrates members of the LGBT community and promotes equality and anti-discrimination. Today's guest shares what it was like to come out gay to her Mormon community of family and friends and survive conversion therapy. Elena Joy Thurston is an inspirational speaker, retreat host, and writer who landed on the Tedx stage in 2019. Her talk titled "Conversion Therapy Almost Took My Life, Mindfulness Saved It" has been watched 41,000 times. It's a raw and emotional recollection of Elena's life and realization of being gay. Today's story is about finding happiness, living in your truth, and loving yourself for who you are. Elena talks about the struggles and discrimination of being gay, how conversion therapy almost took her life, and what she's doing today to ban it altogether in America. Elena's TED Talk mentions that mindfulness saved her life, so we dive into how mindfulness or self-awareness can shift your mindset, and we end with daily rituals you can start implementing in your life today to become more mindful and present. You're listening to the Cultivating Curiosity podcast, where everyone has a story to share. This is the story of Elena Joy Thurston. please state your name and what you do?
I am Elena Joy Thurston. I am a mother. I am a fly fisher, and I am the founder of the Pride and Joy Foundation, which builds self-awareness and safety in LGBTQ families and their allies.
Love that. Briefly walk me through your upbringing and your backstory that led you to your newfound hobby of fly fishing.
Okay, so let's see. How I got to my newfound hobby of fly fishing would be that I was a portrait photographer for 10 years, and I was doing very well in it. And I had a client who wanted me to teach him how to take better pictures with his phone because he was a fly fisher. And so as he explained to me, when you're a fly fisher, you do not keep the fish typically. It's a catch and release. And so you'll spend thousands of dollars on a trip to catch these fish, and the only thing you have to take away from the trip are your photos. So, and it can be really tricky because you've got water and you've got light and the line is really fast moving. And of course the fish like to wiggle. They don't exactly pose. So it can be a pretty tricky thing. And at the time I was wanting to get into long distance running, and he was a huge runner. So he became kind of my coach for that. And I became kind of his photography coach. But then he had more and more friends who were also fly fishers who wanted help. And so I was like, all right, well, if I'm really going to do this, I should probably learn a little about the sport. And I took a few lessons and I was hooked. I loved it. And then I found out that here in Phoenix, of all places, there is a fly fishing club. And so I went there, found some amazing friends, learned a ton. And yeah, now I'm a fly fisher woman.
So cool. Before we start, I want to let you know that I'm going to include the background of your story. Essentially, I'm using your TED Talk as a big inspiration. I'm essentially going to narrate that part of your story, so don't think I'm going to leave any part of your life out before fly fishing. Okay. That's just where I want to pick up our conversation. Okay, sounds good. So, Elena, I want to start with your newfound hobby of fly fishing. So through this hobby, you really had an entire change of course of your life through this hobby because you met someone really special to you. Can you explain to me this newfound relationship?
Absolutely. So it's one of my favorite topics.
I know. I love talking about this stuff. It's so fun.
I'll tell you all about it. Yeah, so I found this fly fishing club. I found out they were meeting like on a Tuesday night. It was like 20 minutes away. It was at an Elks Lodge. I'd never been to an Elks Lodge. And I walk in and all you can smell is like fried food, right?
Ooh,
and
yum.
Yeah, and there's like hunting heads all over the walls. And it was just kind of crazy. And there's like 150 old white men in this room and like 6 women. But as soon as the meeting started, it just did not matter because we were just talking about fly fishing and places to go and flies to use and rods and like the whole thing. And so it was like, oh, these are my people. I'm learning so much. And then there was a break in the meeting and everyone's kind of milling around and talking and visiting. And they have a board, and the board asked the one woman that was serving on the board to come chat with me, like go talk to the new girl, right? And she was like, oh my gosh, you guys, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean that I'm the one that has to talk to all the other women. But so she was not exactly happy. And she came over with the goal of offending me so that she wouldn't have to talk to me anymore.
That's hilarious. Oh, that's so funny.
Right? She came over and she looks at me and she's like, well, I guess boobs can only talk to other boobs. So hi.
That's awesome.
Isn't that great? Best morning ever.
I know. What a great pickup line. I swear.
For real. And then, I laughed really hard and she was like, oh no. So we ended up having a great conversation. And a few days later, I texted her and asked if she would take me fishing. And I had actually heard her name before. People that I was taking lessons from were like, oh, you should really meet Kristen. She's one of the best fly fishers in the state. She's a young woman. Like, you guys would really get along. So I had heard her name. And then when I found out that's who I was talking to, I made sure to get her number. Mm-hmm. Right? So we went fishing a few times, and then we just became very good friends. And we hung out a lot, and yeah, it kind of progressed from there.
So play back to me that exact moment, like you guys are hanging out all the time, you're really enjoying each other's company.
Mhm.
What was the exact moment when you realized, this could be more than just a friendship?
Um, there were a lot of little moments. There were moments like the first time that we got together for lunch, we ended up talking for like 3 hours and had no idea time had passed. And actually, my kids were getting out of school and I was going to be late. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I had to fling myself out of there. Um, and so that was a little odd, right? But as an adult woman, it's so hard to make friends sometimes. And so you're just like, yay, I have a new friend. You're just really happy about that, that there's someone who you gel with and your life gels with them. And that was great. So it was odd that I'd spent 3 hours at a lunch with a stranger, but I kind of just chalked it up to, oh, we're really good friends now. And I'm so excited. I have a new best friend. And then a few weeks later, my son's school was doing a musical, and we had tickets, and my husband couldn't come, and so Kristen came with us, and we were just sitting in the bleachers, and the crowd kind of started to come in and fill in, and I still have anxiety, but at that time I had crazy anxiety, and being in a crowd like that really got me going, and my leg was bouncing up and down, probably annoying everyone around us. The whole bleachers were shaking, right? And she just reached over to touch my knee to like calm my leg down. But it was that touch that was like, oh my. I had never felt anything like it in my whole life. So it was kind of startling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So then the thought starts swirling in your mind, wow, this is more than just a friendship. Like
Yeah.
I'm attracted to Kristen. I really like Kristen. I could potentially love Kristen.
Yeah.
What was this realization like for you?
To call it mind-blowing is cliche, but also an understatement. It was so many layers. So I had been married to a man since I was 20. At that point, I was 37 years old. I had 4 children. And I was very active in the Mormon church. And they very much hold the belief that if you act on same-sex attraction, you will not be getting into heaven. And I had sacrificed a lot in my life in order to know that I was a good person and know that I was going to go to heaven. I mean, that's why I got married at age 20. That's why I had 4 kids before I was 30. Like, the whole thing, right? So there were those levels, but then the really deeper underlying craziness level was I felt so happy with her, and happiness was rare in my life at that time. And so the thought was, there's no way she could be attracted to you. So you need to shut this down, because if you say anything, you're going to lose this happiness and you will have nothing. So don't say anything. So it was all these different levels, right? The fidelity and the religion, but then also just happiness. I could not risk losing her.
What was her reaction when you confessed to her? I have to know. Because you have this fear and you have this doubt of, oh my gosh, will she leave me? I can't live without her. But clearly you guys are still together. What was her reaction?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we were on a fishing trip, and I knew that I was really struggling to not kiss her.
Yeah.
And that was getting harder and harder. And so that night, I stayed up all night long just to make sure, like, that I didn't do anything. And it got to be like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I had to go pee, right? So I get up and I go to the bathroom, and I realize I'm so exhausted because I haven't slept all night, and I'm so tired that I might make a mistake. And so okay, I'm going to stay in this bathroom because if I leave the bathroom, I'm going to make a move. And so, like, a lot of time goes by, and eventually I hear her be like, you okay?
Oh, she's checking on you.
Yeah. I was like, all right, I guess I have to leave the bathroom. Um, and then, yeah, I kissed her, and it was incredible. But it was also, and this is so indicative of who she is. And so our first kiss is a little ridiculous because, so I have a chronic pain from an injury from like 7 years ago. And once in a while, when the inflammation gets really bad and the pain gets really bad, I have to take like a nerve calm downer thing.
Mhm.
And I get a little loopy, right? And so she was aware that like 1 to 4 times a month, like I'm in pain and I have to be on this drug. So when I kissed her, she immediately pulled away. And she was like, "Did you take a pill?" Like trying to ascertain if I was sober, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And all I could think about was the fact that she had like pulled away and stopped
Mm-hmm.
and thought I was like messed up. And so I was so ashamed, and I immediately turned away and I was like, no, don't look at me, don't talk to me, nothing. Can we forget this ever happened? Nothing. And when she realized like, oh no, like Elena is sober, she's doing this of her own will, right? Then she kissed me back, and that was lovely.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. When I was listening to your TED Talk, I was like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, what did Kristen say? What happened? I've been dying to ask you that question.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
I love that story. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So, okay, going back to realizing, wow, I have feelings for Kristen. She has feelings for me back.
Yeah.
It's not all rainbows and butterflies after that. How did your life change when you accepted that I'm gay? I love a woman. What happened?
Yeah, life changed in a huge way, but not quickly. That's for sure. We had a very short physical relationship before my husband found out. I'm not very good at hiding things, it turns out. So he found out pretty quickly. And so then I had to confess to my religious leader and obviously to my husband. And at the time, it was kind of handled as like, oh, Elena just got too close to this friend. She just needs to repent from that. Because obviously she's not gay. She's like 37 years old, like happily married with 4 kids. There's no way she's gay. So this was just a one-time thing. So that's how it started. And so I would meet with my bishop and I would work the repentance process and study my scriptures. And basically at that point, I was trying to be forgiven for not staying in control. And my husband and I were going to marriage counseling and trying to figure out what went so wrong. Because we were both like, okay, obviously this isn't working. Otherwise, that wouldn't have been a temptation at all. So how can we fix this? And that therapist, that licensed counselor, who had been recommended to us by dozens of people and was a member of the faith, she asked for a session with me one-on-one. And she said, basically saying, don't ever come out to your children. It will destroy them. And she gave me example after example of current clients that she had that were adults whose parents had come out to them as children and it had messed them up. And now they're in therapy with her trying to be fixed, right? So example after example, and then it was time to go. We both stood up and she kind of walked me to the door. And then she looked me in the eye and she said, I'm serious, Elena. If you love your children, you will take this secret to your grave. Do not ever tell them. And so that's when it was kind of solidified, like, okay, I can't ever tell my kids. So that means I can never act on this. So I might as well stay married. Because I will ruin my kids if I come out to them. So that's when I kind of doubled down and I found a quote unquote therapist who said that he could fix same-sex attraction. He told me that it was something must have happened in my childhood that was traumatic. And if we find that event, we can heal it. And then I won't suffer from same-sex attraction anymore. So what I didn't realize was that there's a phrase for this. It's called conversion therapy or reparative therapy. And it has a really high suicide rate. But I did not look into it at all. You know, I've really been thinking about how the title of your podcast is about curiosity. Mm-hmm. And I've been thinking a lot about how, wow, I dropped the ball on that. My husband dropped the ball on that. My religious leader who knew I was going to this therapy dropped the ball on that. Like, no one Googled this guy. No one Googled the therapy itself to see if you could be trained in it, which you can't, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we all just put these blinders on. Like, I bought bath towels on Amazon last week. I read all the reviews.
That's hilarious.
But I didn't do anything like that. And it was not cheap. It was 4 days a week, 2 hours a day, at a cost of $270 a day.
Wow.
And he told me in the beginning it would take 1 to 2 months. And I ended up stopping going at 6 months.
Wow.
And so there is definitely a whole process in there. And to summarize it, I did become suicidal. And I did get help that day, which was amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, real help with a real doctor and a real psychiatrist. And I was given meds to help the anxiety and the depression. And they helped me sleep, which I hadn't slept in decades. And when I woke up from that, I finally had a clear mind to start questioning the reality that everyone was putting to me. For example, the Brett Kavanaugh hearings were happening, and the Me Too movement was happening. And we were seeing all these headlines and all these statistics. 75% of American women have been assaulted at some time in their life, like all these statistics. And it finally sunk in. 75% of American women are not gay. Mm-hmm. Those two things are not correlated. Mm-hmm. Yes, I had something horrific happen to me when I was 15. Mm-hmm. And I was a victim of it at 15, and then I became a victim of it again at 37 when this supposed therapist said, that's what made you gay. Mm-hmm. That's what made you think that you're in love with her, but you're really not. And so then to finally realize, no, trauma does not make you gay. Like, maybe 5% of American women are gay. Like, those two things do not correlate. And then to take it a step further and to think about my very good friends who had also gone through incredibly damaging things at the hands of men, and yet were still happily married and enjoying their sex lives. Mm-hmm. They were not struggling with this same-sex attraction thing. And if anyone should be, it would be them. Yeah. And it wasn't, right? And so to finally have the presence of mind to start questioning these things and to start questioning, okay, well, I know that I've swallowed it whole, that acting on same-sex attraction is a sin. But is it? Mm-hmm. Is it? Right? And so that's when I was able to finally get to a place of, okay, when all this is over, I might not have my husband. I might not have Kristen. I might not even have God. All I'm going to have is me and my relationship with myself. And so that's where I started as far as like healing and figuring out all the crap, all the life details. It was, I really want to love myself and I want to do good by me, because doing good by all these other people or organizations is not going to make me happy.
Mm-hmm. A couple questions for you, Elena.
Yeah.
First of all, I was astounded that this conversion therapy is still a thing that is happening. And I know you are a huge advocate for banning it completely, which I totally back you on that. And you call yourself a conversion therapist survivor. And I love that because you really are a survivor, especially after you saying it has a really high suicide rate, like 57% suicide rate. And
Yeah.
I also read on, I believe it was a blog post that you wrote, that rate increases to like 63%, I believe, if you are referred to by a religious leader or a family. I mean, that's insane. That is not okay. And so you really are a survivor, and it's amazing, and I love the work that you're doing. So I'm curious, where does conversion therapy stand today in America?
Yeah, great question. So the simplistic answer is 20 states have banned it, and there's quite a few other. If an entire state doesn't feel confident that they could ban it, many times the capital city will be able to ban it within their city limits. So like that happened in Tallahassee, Minneapolis. They're able to ban it within their city limits, and then eventually they get to do the entire state. That happened in Colorado, which was actually huge because it's kind of an epicenter of conversion therapy. So the fact that they were able to get a statewide ban is absolutely amazing. So that's the simplistic answer. The more verbose answer would be conversion therapy will define it as any therapy whose goal is to suppress same-sex attraction and results in heteronormative attraction. And there's a spectrum to it. On one end of the spectrum, you have the very physically invasive conversion therapy. So you can think of like the shock therapy, the electroshock therapy, that happened in the 50s, 60s, and even the 70s and 80s, especially at certain religious institutions. It was happening as late as the 70s and 80s. People have kind of gotten away from the shock therapy, and now they're on a different kind of method. Most of the time it's children or young adults, teenagers and young adults at these camps where it gets a little more physically invasive. And they'll show them homoerotic images like on a screen, and then they force them to take like a charcoal drink, which makes them vomit. So it's like kind of training your body and your mind that when you see these types of images, you become nauseous.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's very common today.
That's common. See, that
yeah.
blows my mind. That blows my
Yeah.
mind.
It's yes, and people just feel like, oh, it's science. It can't be harmful because it's science. Pavlov's dog, like it's on that whole concept and logic. But the fact is that the APA has said this is very dangerous and harmful, and if you're caught with a licensure doing this, then we will take your license away. You can't be trained in it. Like you can't point to a school and say, oh, the best conversion therapists come from that program. No, there's no training in it because it's not successful and it's not science. So then on the other end of the spectrum, you have where there's nothing physically invasive, but you have someone saying, I know what is best for you. So whether that's a religious leader or that's a quote unquote therapist, they're saying, I know that you are broken and I can fix you. And so we're going to do all these different mental tricks, for lack of a better word, to convince you that you're not attracted to the same sex anymore. So in my case, and this is where it gets really sticky, is he kind of combined science with pseudoscience because he said there's traumatic events in your past. Okay, we already know everyone has those, so of course he's going to find them, right? And we just need to heal them. And so what he did for that was he would guide you through a breathing technique that would kind of, it wouldn't put you into a trance or hypnosis, but it definitely put you into a certain brain wave space in your mind so that when you did recall a memory, it came back like tenfold. Like you could see details and see colors and hear things that you had forgotten about and feel things that you had shut down and really forgotten about. So that's a legitimate technique, right? But it was used in a way of this something broke you and now you're not going to get to heaven. So we got to fix you so you can go back to God.
Wow.
And it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So
clearly not.
No, right? So you end up feeling really broken for a really long time. Like you can only hear that for so long before you start to believe it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So I can see now why the suicide rate is so high because
Yeah.
people know deep down that's who I am, and it's like you're forcing me not to accept who I am. I truly cannot imagine what you've gone through, And you really are a survivor in my eyes and so many other people's eyes as well. And
Mm-hmm.
on that day, on September 27th, when you almost took your own life, that really was a turning point for you. And you like to say life 2.0 began, right? And I
Yeah.
kind of view your life 2.0 as living in your truth and living in who you really are. And I want to know, Elena, like, what courses of action did you take after that day in September where you're like, okay, something has got to give here. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot live my life like this.
Mm-hmm.
What happened in your life? How did you start rebuilding life 2.0?
Mm-hmm. I really took it one very small step at a time. So first it was relinquishing the hope that I would be able to continue a relationship with Chad or with Kristen or with God.
Mm-hmm.
Like I finally gave that up and really only focused on my relationship with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that started things like becoming a little more self-aware, recognizing the fact that I had lost the ability to use my voice. I literally could, when the question became, how do you feel about this, Elena? No words could come out of my mouth. Like there were, and I had not realized that that had happened. I always thought of myself as a very strong verbal communicator. And then it was gone. So,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so there were a lot of little things like that. But then there was also big things of realizing this marriage is not fair to anyone. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to my husband. It's not healthy or fair for my kids. Like they are seeing a relationship that they're being told is functional, right? This is how a husband acts and this is how a wife acts, but that is not healthy and functional. And I realized I didn't want my boys, my two oldest are boys that are teenagers now and have girlfriends and are going through that whole thing. And I realized, especially if they stay in the Mormon faith, they're going to be married in the next like 5 to 10 years at most,
Mm-hmm.
right? And do I really want those poor new daughter-in-laws of mine to feel like they don't get goodnight kisses or goodbye kisses or kiss hello? You know what I mean? Because my boys never saw that. They don't know what it is to cuddle on the couch with your spouse, you know? So that's when I was like, okay, I can make that leap. I can now file for divorce because now I can see that it's really harming my children and my future family.
I mean, yeah, that's a big motivator.
Huge, right? Like, yeah, it doesn't get much bigger than your own kids for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just okay. I filed for divorce. All right, next step. I'm going to move out and move into my own home for the first time ever. I mean, I got married when I was 20. So that was huge and took a lot of planning and making happen. And then it was 6 months later after I'd been in my own safe, wonderful space. Like, I got to like make the master bedroom how I liked it. You know what I mean? Like I got to have a blanket that I really loved and I got to leave my tampon box out in the bathroom. Like
It's the little things, girlfriend.
it really is. It really is. And so it was just a wonderful environment for me to find myself in. And that's when I was finally able to come back to God and be like, okay, am I going to be that gay Mormon who's going to go to church every Sunday and hope that the leaders change their mind, that someday I'll be able to be a full member again? Because there are a lot of gay people out there that do that. Or am I done and there's another path that you want me on? And lucky for me, and I do say lucky and I mean it, like I received a very clear answer. Like, you are done, there's another path for you. There's a huge community of people who have left high demand religions, whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or Orthodox Jewish people, right? High demand religions, and after you leave and you look back, it's that transition is a crisis. It really is. It's a faith crisis. And I was very lucky that I was able to say, I know this is what God wants. Because the mind mess that's in there of, okay, I don't believe this faith anymore, and yet maybe I am being led away by Satan. Like maybe I'm just not strong enough in my faith. You know, like you start to really self-blame yourself if you don't have like a really clear answer. And I'm really grateful that I did. Because then I was able to go to my kids and be like, guys, I know God still loves me. I know. Because that really freaked them out. I mean, they're told every Sunday that they go to church that their mom's not going to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to be able to honestly, authentically tell them, whatever, like I am loved, you guys. God made me perfectly, and I know that.
Absolutely. Like there really is not one way or one version of like who God can love.
Right.
Like, not at all. And it really blows my mind that there are religions based around these very limited boxes. Wow. So I'm so happy that your kids have you as an example that there is a bigger world out there of acceptance and love. It's great. So what was the hardest part of this transitioning into Life 2.0 for you? I can imagine part of it was very liberating and very freeing. Mm-hmm. Finally, you're getting to live a life that you love and you feel good in, but it's not easy. What was the hardest part?
I would definitely say I lost my entire community when I left. I mean, when you are deeply Mormon, and that doesn't happen in very many geographical places. It literally happens like in certain parts of Utah, not even all of Utah, and in the certain parts of Arizona. And that's where I was. And so literally 97% of my friends were very active Mormons. I did not know any homosexuals whatsoever. Like I was deep in the bubble, deep in the bubble. And so to come out, I lost my portraiture business. I lost all of my friends. I lost all my neighbors. Like I lost a lot. And yet I knew I had to do it. I knew being true to myself was going to keep me alive, literally. And so there was a huge temptation to just really jump into the lesbian scene, right? It has its own language, its own fashion, right? It has its own literature. It has all of its own things. And there's a code, right? Like I should be wearing a nose ring and I should have a certain tattoo and I should be wearing Birkenstocks, like the whole thing, right? And it was a very big temptation to just like research the culture and fit in, right? Get my community back. Make sure I'm not alone, right? And luckily I was able to be self-aware enough at that time to be like, no, I don't want to just be in another group. Like I just got out of that. I want to belong to myself. I don't want to belong to this other group. So not to say that I'm shunning lesbians by any way, but it was a really good time for me to take a step back and I have to keep doing it and think, what's my version of lesbianism, right? The fact is I am a mom of 4 Mormon children, right? Like, and I live in the most conservative district in the United States is the district that I live in.
Wow.
Yeah, those are my neighbors. So I have to come back to who I am on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. Like, this is me, because you can get judged by the LGBT community and you can be judged by the Mormon community. And it's one of those situations where you're never going to be enough for either group. And so you just have to be enough for yourself.
That's powerful. You said self-awareness. Like, thank God I had that self-awareness. And that leads me to your viral TED Talk, your very emotional, raw, amazing TED Talk that I'm going to link to in the show notes so everyone can see it.
Thank you.
The title of your TED Talk is Conversion Therapy Almost Took My Life, Mindfulness Saved It.
Yeah.
So, wow, first of all, that's a super powerful statement that something as simple as mindfulness can save your life. First of all, I want to start with, what is mindfulness? Can you just give me a little download on what mindfulness means to you?
Absolutely. So I use mindfulness, self-awareness, and emotional intelligence all interchangeably, depending on the audience that I'm talking to. Currently, I really love self-awareness. So I define it as the intentional observation of our thoughts and actions without judgment. So it's observing everything we're doing, saying, thinking, and our interactions with others without having that inner critic voice tell us that was good, that was bad, that was dumb, that was smart, right? All of those things. And so I had gotten to a point where I was so detached from myself. Like I've already mentioned, like I realized I had completely lost the ability to use my voice, like my authentic, powerful voice. And there were a lot of other things, especially, I mean, it is the elephant in the room. How do you get to 37 with 4 kids and not know you're gay? Really? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the answer to that is lack of self-awareness. I was completely disconnected from my body. I was completely disconnected from my own wants, needs, and emotions. Those had been swept under the rug for decades. And so that's why I do put out there that a lack of self-awareness can cost you your life. And whether that's metaphorically, you get to the end of your life and you realize, oh, I was climbing the corporate ladder and I hated it, or you get in a position where I was, where you become so disconnected to yourself that why not take your own life? It's not like it matters to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really hard to do, though. I mean, mindfulness, I love mindfulness. I'm all about it. But it is extremely hard, especially it's our human nature to categorize things as this is good,
Yes.
this is bad. I mean, it's how we feel like we're in control. It's how we have order in our life. And I've grown to realize that that's not necessarily a good thing because it limits you. But it's just the way our minds are. And it's so hard sometimes, even no matter how consciously you're trying to be mindful or self-aware, it's just so hard. So I want to know how did you do it, first of all, in the midst of everything you were going through, and then how did your perspective on life change once you started viewing life's events objectively from a place of non-judgment, from a place of no shame, just looking at it for what it is? How did your life change?
Oh my gosh, like night and day for reals. So how it started for me, and I don't recommend this approach for everyone, but it was court ordered.
Oh.
So my ex-husband knew that I had had suicidal ideations. And so basically, in order for me to get some custody of the kids, I needed to prove to him and his lawyer and the judge that I was a fit mom. And so because it's all mental, right, this handicap is not like a broken leg that you can see and just give it enough time and it'll heal. Mental illness is not that way. So what I could do was my therapist had to submit all the notes of all of our sessions. And so that proved I'm going every week. Even though I can't afford it, this is a priority and I'm going every week. And I'm taking all the meds my doctor prescribes. You can see because I had to submit my prescription records. And then it was also saying I'm following all of my therapist recommendations, which included daily walks every day. I wasn't allowed to run because that was part of the way that I numbed out and it was not good. So I was supposed to go on walks every single day. I was supposed to journal every single day and meditate every single day. And it was part of the plan to basically prove to the judge, this is a fit mom. Like she's taking her mental health very, very seriously. And so I don't want anyone else to have to go through that, right? But for me, it was probably the only way I was going to get into those habits. I mean, I was a soccer mom of 4 kids. No, I'm not going to meditate every day. But if you threaten to take my kids away, you can be damn sure I'm going to meditate every day, right? So that's how it started for me. And I realized like my need for my anxiety meds went way down. My crying spells every day went way down, right? Things started to regulate for the first time in a long time. And that's when it was like, okay, now I'm doing this because I want to. I really want to. I feel really good. And so then it became about recognizing I was the judgiest person on the planet. Like I was that woman who in our neighborhood was all Mormon stay-at-home moms, right? And we would get together for girls' nights. And sometimes these women would compare doses of antidepressant meds or anti-anxiety meds. Like, I'm on this much. How much are you on? Like that kind of thing.
Wow.
And I remember saying to them, what is wrong with you guys? That you have first world problems at best. Like, why do you think you need this much help? You should be reading your scriptures more, or you should be praying more, or you should be taking nutrition supplements. Like, I was just so judgy. And I used to say, this is like part of my penitence. I used to say, you guys with your fake boobs and your fake eyelashes and your fake happiness in a bottle, you're not dealing with life. Like, I really was that person. And so then it made sense. Oh my gosh, I was treating everyone in my life with all of this judgment because I was so hard on myself. Like the judgments that I passed on myself were way worse than anything I put on anyone else. And so, of course, when you're living with a jerk in your head who's telling you that you are not good enough in any way, shape, or form, that gets emotionally vomited on everyone around you, right? And so then just really systematically weeding out where the judgment was hiding in my mind. And it literally started out with just being hyper aware of the word should. Every time I thought it, every time I said it, every time I heard someone else say it, I really started to realize that using the word should is a judgment at all times. And it's pervasive, and it's in every other sentence that I think about. And so it was a very good habit to establish to start releasing that judgment.
That's great. What are your daily rituals that you do? I'm all about the takeaways.
Oh, yeah.
And I need to know, like, I'm assuming you meditate every single day. Like, what does that look like? What are your rituals that you do to stay mindful, centered, and grounded?
Absolutely. So I live in Arizona, and it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. So currently my mindful movement is the first thing in the morning because it's by 10 a.m. it's too hot to do anything. So I get up early. I just call it intentional movement or mindful movement. So it might be a walk, it might be a run. I am now cleared to run, which is wonderful. And so I have my intentional movement, which includes mobility. And just with this quarantine, Kristen and I have started working out. We have a rack in the garage, and we're lifting heavy weights again. It's wonderful.
That's awesome.
It's an anxiety crusher like nothing else. I love it. And then I shower, and I've just recently started making that more of a ritual. I'm really still pretty disconnected from my body. So I've now kind of integrated a ritual around putting lotion on after a shower. Like it's just putting lotion on, but I'm forcing myself to be present with my body, how it is right now, not depressed that it's not the way it was before I had kids, and not stressed out about what is it going to be like in 10 years. But be just really present with my body right now. So that's been really good for me. And then I do meditate. I typically the longest meditation session is like 20 minutes. And I use different things every day. I really like the Calm app. If I know I'm having decision fatigue and I can't like make a choice, then I'll just turn on the Calm app and do whatever their daily meditation is. But there are a few YouTubers that I love. And so sometimes if I feel it, I'll go with them. And then I do immediately, like on my meditation pillow that I have, as soon as my meditating is done, I do my journaling. I have this amazing daily review journal type thing that I use. It's my friend who wrote it, and it's incredible, and I love it. And then I work. Yeah, I think that's it.
That's a great way to start the day. I wish all my mornings looked like that.
Right? I know.
If I'm lucky, I get like a Sunday morning like meditation.
Yeah.
If I'm lucky. Oh my God, that's great. Oh, so nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know I'm going to implement some of that into my life and my mornings. I want to know, before I let you go for the day, what does your life look like today? You seem very happy, very bubbly. I love it. How are you doing today?
Today is amazing. I've been thinking a lot about, oh my gosh, if I was quarantined with like anyone else in my life, I would go insane. Like, yeah, being in love is an amazing, incredible thing. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
To be able to go to sleep with someone that makes you feel like that and wake up with someone that makes you like, it's just incredible. And she's an amazing mom when the kids are here. They just love her and she loves them, and that's incredible. My ex and I actually moved into the same neighborhood because our kids each go to schools really close to each other. So we moved into the neighborhood that's right by the schools. So all four kids can ride their bike to school, ride their bike to dad's house. Like they can, yeah,
That's
have the run
great.
of the place. Yeah.
That's so
So
awesome.
they're here like half the time or
Mhm.
more, depending on if it's warm enough for the pool or not. Um, and what I do during the day is absolutely incredible as well. When it's not quarantine, I'm speaking at live events, which is incredible. And I get to testify in front of local governments about the damage conversion therapy can do to their community. So I love that. And I have started my nonprofit, which is all about increasing self-awareness for LGBTQ families and their allies. And so that's been incredible. Like it's just been amazing. Life 2.0 is freaking incredible.
Oh, that's so great, Elena. You deserve it. I am so happy for you. Are you still fly fishing?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
We
awesome.
actually we just got back from the Grand Canyon. We spent the whole weekend at the Grand
Oh,
Canyon fly
that's
fishing.
so nice. You make
It
me
was
want to take up fly fishing. You make it seem
even
like it's
better.
so fun. I don't know if there's anything like that in New Jersey.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
We'll see.
We'll get you hooked up.
Oh my God, that's awesome. All right, Elena, where can people find you?
So the prideandjoyfoundation.com website is where I'm spending a lot of my time right now. I'm also really on Instagram, which that handle is Elena Joy Experience on Instagram. I'm really active on there. And that's where I put the stories of kind of behind the scenes, like Kristen and me and the kids and that kind of stuff. That guide all goes on there. But yeah, podcasts, and I don't have my own, but I love coming on others like with you. This is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the best ways to get in touch.
Awesome. Elena, before I let you go, I'm going to ask you a question I ask all of my guests. It's my
Okay.
favorite question. How do you cultivate curiosity in your life?
Ooh, how do I cultivate curiosity in my life? Well, first of all, I need more of it. I
Mm-hmm.
do. I always am looking for more of it. And I think I tie it into creativity. And so when I am creating something, whether that's a new course on mindfulness or whether that's, I just put together a self-discovery journal. So when I'm creating something, that's when it's very easy for me to be curious of how can I make this better? Is this speaking? Is this the right voice, right? Like, is this effective? How can I make it more effective? So I think that's where curiosity comes in by default. But when I need to curate curiosity and create more of it, I would say I have to do something new, kind of novel. I have to put myself in a new place. Like I have to get out of the house that I live and work in, be with new people, see new things, eat new food, and that gets the curiosity flowing again.
I love that. I'm right there with you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is a pleasure.